When you come to Earth and you embody yourself in this thing called biology, your physical body, you tend to lose the remembrance of who you truly are. Part of it, I guess you could say, is a good thing, because it allows each of you to truly experience what it is like to live in an illusion.
Because you have been cocooned, all right, isolated. Your history has been rewritten so that you don't remember who and what you truly are.
So it's so important to start waking up to the truth of one's own nature. And the truth of one's own nature is what one finds when we go within and discover the connection to all and to God. God is all that is, that lies deep at the heart of the true self.
If it was intuitive of what you had going on this planet, we might as well just turn on the lights and everyone goes home. You see, there must be secrets. There must be an overlay. There must be a veil. There must be the predetermined energy that says, can't be so. This creates a little mountain to climb, does it not? Those who are watching this now, be aware that this is part of the mountain to climb. For it has to do with your belief, what you've been told, as opposed to what you feel.
There are still what you might call newcomers on the earth who haven't necessarily run the gamut of all the different kinds of incarnations you could have as a human on earth, but the majority of you, yes, have experienced just about everything you can possibly experience. You have killed and been killed. You have been a benefactor and been benefited. You have been every gender, every experience. You have been every family member. You have had just about every disease that can be had. You have experienced absolute joy in certain lives, freedom, fear, everything, the whole spectrum. Most of you at this point.
They always describe it as being like a roller coaster. You know, if you've never been on one before, you kind of get on. You don't know when you're going to go up, when you're going to go down, when you're going to go around the corner. And it's a little scary. And, it can be a little fearful, but then you get off the ride and it was great and you want to get right back on. And that's what it's like through the incarnational cycle. You go through and it's a little scary and a little bumpy, but as soon as you get off, you're like, that was a great ride, I want to go on it again. So that's how they describe it to me, that once we see the big picture and understand it, we're excited to go back down.
Most people don't believe in anything before life. Nothing whatsoever. So you have 85% of the earth, according to Time magazine, that believes in a religion that supports the afterlife, and yet you have only about 4% of the earth, which would be Hindu and Buddhist, who actually believe in a forelife, which doesn't make spiritual sense. Somehow, mom gives you birth and you have a soul forever. But that's the teaching of the church.
There was nothing before.
There was nothing before. Ask them.
Yeah.
There was nothing before.
You have pretty much all done it all. That's why you're arriving at the end of the cycle of limitation, because there's really not that much left to explore. You have all done it all. So now you are remembering, you're waking up out of that particular dream, because you're at the end of that dream, almost.
Because when you come into a physical existence, you become a creator in the physical dimension. You're creating your life and your the activities and your experiences, your responses to the experiences. But it's all about the progression of the evolution of one's soul, isn't it? Yes? And reincarnating allows you more and more understanding and knowledge through experience.
You exist. That will never change. The form may change, but the fact that you exist will never change. Existence does not become non-existence, because non-existence is already full of all the things that will never exist, and there is no room in non-existence for the things that do exist. Existence is the only quality existence has, to be. There is no not to be.
Jesus.
A great teacher. No more the Son of God, however, than
I am.
you are. Exactly. A great teacher, yes.
It makes a good story. Humans need a hero. They need sports heroes. They need political heroes, although there's not many. They need technology and science heroes, but they also need an icon that they can look up to and worship, because they don't go within.
The archetype of the Jesus, the Savior, is still very powerful on the planet. And yet that slowly is being replaced by people finding it within themselves, instead of needing it to be out there as a figure.
In the early days of the Catholic Church, there was, how would you say, a basic understanding that Jesus would appeal to the masses because he was a human, and that he would be such a fine example. It took them well over 500 years to even decide amongst themselves how he would be presented to the public. In your modern terms, would be how his PR campaign would be handled. So they developed this very interesting but not necessarily accurate story of Jesus, which wasn't even his real name to begin with. It was, when he walked on earth, it was Yeshua ben Joseph. They need someone to look to and to worship. And their leaders, even religious leaders, who have no idea of what the I am principle is about, who have no idea that the God is already within, they encourage their groups to worship some far off Jesus, because it is a wonderful way of perhaps what you would call anesthetizing them a bit, take their mind off their daily pain, but it's also a wonderful way of controlling. So whether it is the Christian church, whether it is so many of the other religions, they create these icons. But the icons are out there somewhere, and they're generally hardly based in reality.
For those of you who are, extremely light, guess what? You've had extremely dark lifetimes. You've probably done some extremely dastardly deeds. So that's difficult. A part of your quote-unquote New Age movement wants to be all light and all happy, and we'll tell you that is not what this lifetime is about, because there are prejudices there. All right? And the idea here is that you release all of that prejudice, all of that judgment against the dark, because you cannot have one without the other.
Those who are biased to the light only are basically imbalanced. And they're going to have to then, sooner or later, experience their dark part, which they're deathly afraid of. They're afraid of that dark part within. Why do they label it dark? Why do they think it's evil? It's just another aspect of them.
One doesn't want to be in the light by being in the denial of one's shadow.
The idea, remember, is that growth is the product of integration of all that you are, not the exclusion of anything. It is the allowance that everything is valid, the balancing of everything is valid. That's why the more evolved you become, you actually become more aware of more dark, because you're willing to integrate it all and balance it all within you.
And so there are some who want to, step into that space and say, oh, I'm nothing but light. I haven't had any dark lifetimes. And we will tell you it is precisely the opposite. Because usually it's not until you have mastered the dark or some aspect of the dark that you are given abilities and to work in the light as well.
Momentum to snap into the light is actually gathered by exploring the darkness as deeply as you can.
Brian says on the other side of the veil, it is much, much different. We don't have the minds we do now. We don't have the logic we do now. And this is like a play. This is, Brian says, it's very much like a play. When the guy, when the curtain closes and the guy with a knife who has been murdered by the other guy, the curtain closes, they all get up and go have a party. There's no animosity. They don't care. They don't carry a vendetta. And so when we're on the other side of the veil, it's like we regroup and come back in.
So there are really no victims or villains?
There are no victims and villains. And this, of course, will fly in the face of every single teaching that anybody's ever heard in this nation. There is also no heaven and hell. This is a very interesting theme, and I'm glad you asked that, because when I'm in Israel, which I have been numbers of times, especially in the heart of it, in Jerusalem, these questions are asked. It's inconceivable that Hitler is not in hell. there is a line you cross. That guy has got to be being punished right now. According to my channeling, the men and women I work with who channel, that is not the case. He came and he did something. He went to the dark side, if you want to call it, and a whole bunch of people went with him. And he had the choice, and so did they. And he created something that we just find abhorrent and just awful. And yet, when the curtain closed, he got up and everybody gave him a party.
That being, who was Hitler, agreed to be of service to that collective, to that group, to that genetic line. And that's a hard one for humans to see. All right? That's a very hard thing for them to begin to forgive. And then that goes back to the veil, of why the veil is placed there, here, so that you don't remember everything.
Everybody who was what you would call adversely or tragically affected by the era of Hitler and by Hitler himself was there because they created together, they co-created that reality that was, from a human perspective, certainly a very tragic and sad and awful time in your history. But Hitler was the catalyst for growth in many people who participated in that Holocaust. And it really was a Holocaust in human terms. And so good did come out of that.
The fact that such a being existed in your reality is part and parcel a reflection of what your reality allows. And thus it is a service to you to show you this is what you support. Is this what you want to continue to support, or do you want to change this in the future? So it can be used as a service in that way. So yes, on a soul level, it can be looked at as a service, even though on the human level it may only be seen as an atrocity.
We do not teach or believe that you have to repay past debts, if you will. And that's what many people see karma being. Like your past misdeeds from this lifetime or another lifetime, you got to make up for those. And that's, in our view, nonsense. If you want us to be more blunt about it, it's bullshit.
Discussing what you would call the concept of sin has been done many times. And you will know that I will say this, and it is controversial to almost all that you have been taught. There is no such thing. Sin has been and is created by human beings, wishing then to assign something to it. It is often then control. It is often then punishment. For you will have some guru tell you what is appropriate and inappropriate to God.
You are not in any way shackled by the past. Past of this life, past of many lifetimes ago. And so there's nothing to repay.
And what you might say to that is that there must be inappropriate behavior. When you see those who are in prison for certain acts that are atrocious, when you see those who take lives, you would say, surely that is inappropriate. And I will say to you, that is exactly what it is. In the scheme of the balance that you have chosen to create as your culture. But spiritually, it follows a pattern where those who have done it by free choice. And when they get to the other side of the veil, there is no judgment. Therefore, sin, by the very nature of its definition, does not exist as sin. There are no sins, that is to say, things that you do, which then you will be punished for.
All your power is right now, so it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. All that matters is where you want to go from here, and you have all the power to go wherever you want from here. Right here and now, you have that power.
When you don't remember that you are eternal and infinite, the physical personality ego, the construct that you create, that is the physical mind, does not know that death does not equal annihilation. When the physical mind thinks that death equals non-existence or annihilation, it then goes into survival mode, panic, fear, doubt. But when it understands that physical reality is simply a temporary manifestation, a mask, if you will, a projection of a greater consciousness that you are, and you understand that you always exist, then the fear of death vanishes.
Let us say each time you conquer a fear, let us say each time you discover something about timing, your spiritual jar fills up a little inside. This spiritual jar is your Akash. It keeps track of the energies that you saw. And when you come back in the next time, all of that is ready. At the same level you left it. You never have to relearn it.
And many of you ask, what role do past lives play? And we will tell you, a very big one. Alright? And they're not really past, they're concurrent. So as you are both working on things, both lifetimes are working on things, you are clearing things out energetically. Alright? Through both emotional bodies. That's enough to make your head spin.
We have shamans walking around. We have the past Buddhas walking around who will never be Buddhas and never be shamans. But it's there. And all their life experience is there. Free choice determines whether they will open the closet. And when they do, you will find them putting upon everything they have learned. This is how you can have someone who is completely untrained in spiritual things suddenly become a master. It seems to be out of the way things work, but believe me, they have paid their dues, and they have studied, and they have had lifetimes of learning, just like you have.
Why are so many humans afraid of death?
Well, that goes back to conditioning as well. That you are disconnected from source energy. So if you're disconnected, then you don't remember what's going on. Alright, and that was part of the game. It's just the way the game was set up. But there are more and more of you who are awakening and remembering that you are immortal beings.
Transition or death is always a pleasant experience.
Always a pleasant experience.
We're talking about at the moment you made your transition.
When you come to the planet, there is a predisposition, you might say a groove that you would travel in, that has upon it a potential of your time of death. It is the human being who understands, however, that they can pop out of that groove and go in another direction with their own free will, which means that they will never meet their death in the groove. Therefore, we are saying this, that although the death is a potential around you all the time, and at some level that potential is known, you are still in control on this planet of your life in a grand, grand fashion. There is no predetermined time that you are going to die. You will choose it at the moment by free choice in real time in 3D.
The idea for most individuals when they pass on into spirit is that it's like for a physical person waking up from a dream. Just as you wake up from a dream during the night and say, oh, well, that's just fading away, that wasn't real. So too, a soul may find itself, a spirit may find itself suddenly in spirit going, oh, this is who I really am, that was just a dream.
Dying is the easiest thing you'll ever do, because you are re-emerging back into the world of spirit, back to where you came from, back to your source. And it's always... It's like a breath of fresh air. It's like taking off a tight shoe. You feel that kind of sense of relief and release. And if you could get a small glimpse or remembrance of it, you would never fear death again. And you would go through the rest of your lives with a smile on your lips and with joy in your heart.
There are energies of angels that you would call specialists. We're not compartmentalized to that degree, for we're all one. But we take our tasks and we do certain kinds of things for one another. And in that, you might say, some then come into the planet and some then are support. There are far more supporters than there are humans who come in. I am a supporter.
All humans have guides and helpers. Yes, you are all connected to much larger families than you may be aware of. Many of the guides are simply friends that you've experienced other lives with, who simply may not be incarnating in the same time frame that you are, have remained in spirit for that duration to help you from the other side, so to speak.
You are never alone. There's always help out there, no matter how far down you think you've fallen.
The idea is that often a guide will attempt to remain unobtrusive also in giving you the information, because the whole point of guiding you is to actually teach you to be your own best guide. So the idea is that many times a guide will use the props that exist in your own physical reality already to get you to pay attention to information that they feel you might need to know or that might serve you. So for example, synchronicity in life, those little coincidences that aren't accidental, of just winding up at the right place at the right time, overhearing exactly the conversation you needed to hear exactly at the right moment to be able to get that next piece of information you needed at exactly that moment, may have been the work of your guide steering you in a certain direction and not delivering the information directly, but knowing the information was available to you in your reality already. If they would only nudge you down a certain street at a certain time, that's all they may need to do. Sometimes you might actually hear them more strongly and more directly. You might experience them in your dreams. Very often, dream communication is one of the strongest ways that guides will communicate with you. And many of the so-called dreams that you may remember when you wake up may not always have just been the random collection of processing going on in your brain from the day's events, but may actually be representative of a communication or conversation you're having with friends and family on other levels.
Emotional body creates the physical template. All illness starts in the emotional field, without exception. If it's a genetic mutation, that starts in the emotional field, and it is something that has been so generously left behind by one of your ancestors. All right, they had a big emotional issue, a block. It altered the genetic material, and that got passed down through the genetic line.
Many people carry with them, even throughout their lives, even unto their deathbed, resentments and guilt and worry. And that is where all physical illness comes from these negative emotions that people nurture even.
It all goes back to the emotions, because the emotional body creates the physical reality. So if you're talking about weight and health, you know, how you are feeling about yourself is determining your physical body more so than what you're consuming and how you're exercising, which is a very different way of thinking for many of you, because you're conditioned to think that it's all physical, but it's not. It's all emotional.
Make no mistake, there is no thing as a generic human being. You come from such a different platform, different lives, different cultures, and you arrive in this culture. Some of you may wish to only eat one kind of thing, some of you wish to eat another. Do what your body feels best with, that results in the most energy and the most appropriateness for you.
At the deepest level in the human psyche, there is this archetype called separation, and it's based on the fact that you separate yourself from source when you choose to become born. And everyone has that experience over and over and over. Every lifetime that you choose to be incarnated, you are experiencing separation. Separation from source, separation from unconditional love, separation from the light, separation. I feel disconnected, I feel separated, something's missing in my life. The desire for something transcendent becomes very, very strong. And instead of seeking it authentically within, through one's spirituality, people will often seek it through external substances and mind-altering substances, seeking something transcendent through the use of drugs and alcohol.
Which usually represents a belief system in the person that thinks something is missing that needs to be replaced by something artificial. If that doesn't exist as a belief, then you will find that people will naturally ingest whatever food or liquid is in keeping with their best benefit.
Many of them are using to numb. All right, they don't want to feel the pain. Yes. All right. Some are very empathic. Alright, and they are very in tune with what's going on with the planet, with other people, and it's too much for them to handle. They don't want to feel it because they're not clearing out their own field. Alright, they're taking it on, and that's a choice. You don't have to take on others' energy. You can be aware, you can be one who is sensitive, but that doesn't mean that it is your responsibility to take it on.
The new consciousness right now is about the I am. And while to some it may sound very selfish, it is actually about discovering yourself.
Working on yourself is the greatest gift that you can give to humanity. And that sounds so self-centered and so negative, but that's how you've been conditioned.
It is about putting yourself first, loving yourself first, taking care of yourself first, having compassion with yourself first, and knowing yourself first.
If you want to keep someone from accessing their own power and helping to heal the planet or helping to heal mass consciousness, you're going to tell them that it's very selfish for them to look inside.
Instead of worrying or being afraid of what's going on in the world around you, just focus on your own world.
Then, and truly then, you are able to help humans. But you'll understand only humans that are choosing help.
Look at your issues. Where are your buttons being pushed? Where do you feel fear? Where do you feel that you shrink away? You know when you've got a fear. Alright? Many of you are quite aware of it and decide, you know, I really don't want to look at that. And so you don't. Alright? And you know what we're talking about. There are times when you feel yourself tense up. And you are conscious of it. So it is a choice.
Learn to be with yourself. Go off and take a month, 40 days perhaps, as Yeshua did. Go off by yourself and learn to be with you. Learn that you don't need to steal energy from anyone else.
There must be a balance between the intellect and what you would call the heart. And that person who is balanced, that human who is balanced, will show. You'll know them. For they will seem to be more gentle. They seem to be more open and less judgmental. This would be the balance. You might say, well, they are heart-based. They are not. They are balanced. Never throw away what your truth is. Never throw away what your logic tells you. But temper it with the emotion of your heart and become balanced.
There's a big misunderstanding in society and in many cultures that if you're going to become spiritual, you're going to get real restricted. And that's because of the old dogmas of different religions, different churches in different ways. But spirituality itself is not at all restricting in one's way of experiencing life. The true hunger for knowing one's own divine nature, for experiencing one's own divine nature, that true hunger can lead you into great discovery and great freedom. Great freedom.
Each of you standing alone is fully consciously aligned with your higher self is far more powerful than many millions who are living in fear or doubt or anger. One person.
There's a great sage who likes to say, if you want enlightenment, lighten up. And certainly so, that is absolutely true. But we would suggest that one of the great secrets to lightening up is being willing to heal and transform one's angers and fears so that the joys can be fuller and richer, and so that creation can become a very active principle in your life.
The foundation of our work here with John is simply to encourage people to be joyful, to find good in the world around them, to look for it, deliberately look for it. Not just to stumble over it accidentally, but to look for the good, first of all, in themselves, to be appreciative for this gift of life that they have in these human bodies. All of you are physical extensions of your God selves. Be joyful. Be joy.
You know, you all are beautiful beings of light. All right? And we are very honored to have an opportunity to speak to you or to work with you. And you really are very special and very rare. This planet has some very beautiful things on it. And the range and expression of love is amazing. The kind you have with a friend, the kind you have with a lover, the kind you have with a lifelong mate, with your brother, with your mother, with your father. They're varying shades, and that is what is so special about the love on this planet. It's not like that everywhere. Enjoy being human while you can. Enjoy the things that the physical world has to offer. Have fun, play, love, laugh, and allow new ideas and new inspiration to come in.
Imagine yourself singing new songs, creating music, writing books, painting pictures. Imagine yourself waking up in the morning and looking forward to the day, not how you're going to get through the day. Open yourself up now. Go beyond. And don't be afraid of what you're going to lose, because you didn't need it anyway.
If you lift the veil and start to see all that is here, what you're going to see is pure love. What you're going to see within that is an uplifting potential spirit, not only for you but those around you. Your life will change dramatically at that point at which you decide to eliminate drama. Hook up to that which we would call the connection to the other side of the veil. And I want you to know this, dear human being. It doesn't matter what religion you are in the planet. You can still be that and love God in this way. No matter what the doctrine is on the planet, you can still be that and love God in this way. This is not climbing out of one box into another. This is discovering the core issue. And that is that you always have been and always will be in control of your life as a piece of God in this universe. And so it is.
And so we thank you for the gift of sharing, because you allow us the gift of seeing through all of you that many more ways that creation has of expressing itself, and it expands our understanding of all that is. So we simply extend our unconditional love, our deep appreciation, and heartfelt thanks for the co-creation of this transmission. And we bid you a fond and exciting good day.
Thank you so much. That's so great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're back.
I'm back. I'm back.
How did it go? Consider the body a vehicle, like a car. I'm usually the one behind the driver's seat, behind the wheel. But when Bashar comes through, it's like I slide over to the passenger seat.
I have memories of other lifetimes where I've had similar abilities to connect to other realms and dimensions, but not exactly like this.
It's like you've somehow reached beyond your normal, ordinary self. That's how it feels to me.
There's times in a channel where I just go out, God knows where it is. I mean, I'm aware of things happening in the room, but at a certain point, even that kind of goes away.
I get to experience another reality altogether when I channel. I get to experience an entirely different worldview.
You are the first to interview crime in channel.
I almost feel overwhelmed, really.